Life Audio.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
We want families to come here and gain insightful strategies that empower them to successfully teach diverse learners at home.
Hosted by founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Peggy Ployer.
Our goal is that these powerful weekly conversations will boost your confidence to cultivate the best at-home learning environment for your student.
For more homeschool resources, go to spedhomeschool.com. You're listening to Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer. We'll start the conversation with Peggy and her guests next.
The best-selling illustrated Bible for kids and teens, the Action Bible, is now better than ever. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is an interactive Bible specifically created for kids and teens ages 7 to 15. The Faith in Action Edition is designed to engage young readers in God's Word through hundreds of vividly illustrated Bible stories in chronological order with activities and games. Readers will grow in God's Word by using QR codes, providing free access to over 2,000 devotionals, hundreds of prayers, character stories, teaching videos, maps, timelines, and much more. Additionally, the Action Bible Faith in Action Edition allows readers to explore the major themes of the Bible like courage, faith, hope, love, service, trust, and wisdom. Each theme provides practical advice on how to live out God's Word. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is the best interactive Bible you can purchase for your child or teen. Purchase your copy today at Sam's Club, Barnes & Noble, or Amazon.
Do you want to better understand the Bible and give biblical answers to those who ask you about your faith? Hi, this is Perseus Poku, host of the Sound Reasoning Podcast Show. Listen to us weekly as we bring the truth often found in the ivory towers of seminary down to the steeple towers of local church. Join me along with many of the nation's top theologians as we offer answers to life-tough questions from an apologetic perspective. Subscribe to the show at lifeaudio.com.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com. Here's Peggy Ployer.
Today we're going to talk about options for teaching nonverbal students when words don't work with special guest Martha Gabler. Welcome, Martha. Glad to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here talking about this very important topic.
Yes, it is. It's becoming more and more important as more parents are realizing that they can homeschool a nonverbal student. And the resources are just starting to emerge out there. And so parents are just scrambling for, how do I do this? I think it's possible. I know it's possible. I think I can do a better job than the school is doing. Not that the schools are bad, but a lot of times there's just too many students, and our students need so much individualized attention. And so thank you for being willing to share from your wisdom, your experience. And if you're just popping on the show, I promise you're going to really enjoy this conversation and getting to know Martha and what she has to share. So we would love you to be able to be involved in this conversation. So put your comments, your questions in the feed, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. We welcome that. And we want you to know that your questions and your comments matter, and we want to make sure that they get addressed if you're joining with us live. We do have some people that submitted questions ahead of time through our e-blast that went out last night, and we'll be including those in this conversation as well. We have printed those out and added them to the list of questions that I will be asking Martha. So don't fear, your questions will get answered. So Martha, as we're getting started, I would love if you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to needing to find alternative teaching methods.
Well, thank you very much, Peggy. My husband and I have two children, two boys, and the younger one, Douglas, by age 3, we, of course, have realized that he had autism. Not only did he have autism, but very severe autism, nonverbal, self-injury, all of the difficult communication issues, very difficult disruptive behaviors that went on basically around the clock.
Right.
So you could barely even get your hands on him when he was a toddler because he was screaming and running and stomping and bouncing on chairs, and then more screaming and some tantrums. And that was his day. That was his day. So he was very difficult, very challenging in that way. And we knew we had a big problem.
Right.
But pretty early on, we realized we had to homeschool because the knowledge was simply not there in the official systems. And so then how do you do that with that kind of a learner?
Right, exactly.
That set me off on what ended up being a 4-year quest.
Wow.
So I spent my first 4 years kind of searching, and then the next 4 years figuring out how to put it all together. But of course, pretty quickly we encountered ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is a beautiful science where you increase productive behaviors with positive reinforcement. It's a beautiful science, but of course, as far as a service, there was no way we could get it. There were so many bureaucratic obstacles and financial obstacles. So I read books and I figured out how to do it myself. And my son made good progress with that.
The typical homeschool parent.
He made good progress, but the behaviors were still so wild and so unpredictable. And I think the kind of official programming that was at that point, this is 25 years ago now, we're talking 24 years ago that all this was going on. Remember the internet did not exist.
Exactly. When I started homeschooling, it was forms.
There was no Facebook, cell phones. I mean, some people did, but the kind of phones you have nowadays, no Facebook, no social media. There were still debates on the news about, does your business actually need a website?
Right, exactly.
So think back to a different time.
Yes.
And so, of course, even finding information was difficult. I mean, we were still going to libraries.
Exactly.
That was all difficult. But I pursued ABA, and then I learned about verbal behavior therapy, also a great option for children with autism. From there, I also learned about direct instruction, which is a phenomenal curriculum. Phenomenal curriculum. Many homeschoolers use this famous
that
book.
too. Teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons.
Yep. That's fabulous. Also learned about a very good data collection approach called precision teaching, which is a little more complex. And if you can get some help with that, it's great. But all of those steps, they're all wonderful. And my son made a lot of progress, but we were still having the explosive behaviors. And then finally, in one little listserv somewhere, there was a footnote.
Oh, wow.
I know that's what there was a footnote.
That you even saw it, right?
I read footnotes very diligently now. There was a footnote that mentioned mentioned a woman by the name of Karen Pryor and her interesting work with training. And I thought, we could really use some training. So I pursued it and I read her book, which is this intriguing title, Don't Shoot the Dog.
Okay.
Pryor. Now, it is not a book about dog training. It is a book about using behavioral positive reinforcement and this wonderful little gadget. This is called a tagger or a clicker. Yes. And it is how you mark a behavior. This is how you mark a behavior. Then you hand over your little reinforcer to your learner, and your learner realizes, hey, that thing I just did was really good because I got a treat. What was it that I did again? And then, that. So this book really opened up my eyes as to how I could deal with the many, many really difficult problems of our child. And, for autism parents who have children more in the severe end of the spectrum, these problems are common. The running around.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say, when you were describing that, I'm like, so many of our listeners can relate to you.
Yeah. And walking to the car, getting into the car, sitting in the car and not rocking and kicking the seat and screaming and hitting your head, and then getting through the grocery store.
Yes.
That's a huge challenge, and all of that. And these problems are so severe that many families find themselves landlocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isolated at home, and like maybe dad goes out to get the groceries. I've even known of families where they go in 2 cars so that if a child has a tantrum, he or she can be immediately driven home.
After a word from our sponsor, we'll dive back into this conversation. The best-selling illustrated Bible for kids and teens, the Action Bible, is now better than ever. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is an interactive Bible specifically created for kids and teens ages 7 to 15. The Faith in Action Edition is designed to engage young readers in God's Word through hundreds of vividly illustrated Bible stories in chronological order with activities and games. Readers will grow in God's Word by using QR codes, providing free access to over 2,000 devotionals, hundreds of prayers, character stories, teaching videos, maps, timelines, and much more. Additionally, the Action Bible Faith in Action Edition allows readers to explore the major themes of the Bible like courage, faith, hope, love, service, trust, and wisdom. Each theme provides practical advice on how to live out God's Word. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is the best interactive Bible you can purchase for your child or teen. Purchase your copy today at Sam's Club, Barnes & Noble, or Amazon.
It's a crazy world out there, moms and dads. I'm Catherine Seegers, host of Christian Parent Crazy World, the podcast that tackles tough topics to help you be a godly parent in an ungodly world. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool. Go to spedhomeschool.com to get resources and support for teaching your unique learner at home.
Now, I don't think we should have to live like that personally, but I didn't know how to solve it. Anyway, I read this book and I solved the problem, and I finished reading the book, and the next day in the morning, I went downstairs and my 2 sons were there, and we had to go somewhere. And my son, Douglas, with autism, erupted into a tantrum. And I had finished reading the book, and I thought, I should be able to figure this out. And I thought, what do I want to reinforce? What can I reinforce? And I looked.
Yes.
And so he was screaming. And I thought, well, I don't want him to scream. I want him to be quiet. And I noticed that there were split seconds of quiet mouth, because he would scream and scream. Eventually, you have to breathe.
You have to breathe.
So as soon as the split second, I tagged that and gave him a little piece of candy. So I continued tagging quiet mouth. And then, of course, his hands were waving around. And I don't want his hands up there. I want his hands down. So as soon as even one arm came down, I would see it going down, tag that action of going down. So soon his hands were down, and he was running around. But occasionally, like, he would come to a wall and he would have to stop because he couldn't go running any further. So for that split second, he had both feet on the ground, give a treat. And I was in this kind of daze, quiet, hands down, feet still. And in 12 minutes, he was sitting on the sofa like this.
Wow.
That's what happened. That's what happened.
That's dramatic.
Yes. And I happened to look at the clock when I started. I don't know why I thought about that, but I thought, I'm going to see when I start, when I stop, and what happens. And in 12 minutes, that tantrum was whoosh.
Wow.
And it's ironic because in the ABA world, rule number one is don't reinforce a tantrum. You don't want to encourage a tantrum.
Right.
A tantrum has a lot of specific individual physical behaviors in it.
Absolutely.
And what you can do with this, and only with this tool, is you can catch that split second of a behavior that is good. Quiet mouth is a good behavior.
Right.
For autism, hands down, is a good behavior. Not running around like crazy but having both feet on the floor is a good behavior. We want to encourage those good behaviors. And that's what I was able to do in that first 12-minute experience I ever had with tagging. And then we went on our way and everything was fine. And I was euphoric because I thought,
I can imagine. Yes.
I don't ever have to be afraid of a tantrum again. If I get a tantrum, I just watch for quiet mouth, watch for hands down, I watch for, both feet on the floor. And because I diligently tagged these productive behaviors during the tantrum, his tantrums overall diminished rapidly.
Wow.
And as time went on, they happened fewer and fewer times, because if he did erupt, he knew he would be calmed down. And of course, so, that was just a stunning introduction to it for me. And there was so much more going on in this situation than just that. For example, I never once used my voice.
Yes.
Okay, I never once spoke to him. I didn't have to go near him. Some kids, when they have these tantrums, they can become violent.
Right,
so
exactly. And parents can get hurt.
Yes. So I could stand far back. I didn't have to be near him. And I didn't even have to worry if he accepted the little treat that I put down, because I gave it to him. It was available. So even if he didn't want to grab it, it was there. It had been given.
Right.
It was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his choice if he wanted to go for it or not. So for him, this was a good experience, because he didn't have like the vibration of my voice to deal with. He didn't have my emotion to deal with.
Oh yeah, you're adding in so many other sensory and other inputs that make it more complicated. So really that clicker, it becomes the representative of all of those things in one.
Yeah, so this is the communication tool. This is how you can deliver positive reinforcement to your child that is very specific. And all kids with autism, they understand this right away, provided you do it properly.
Right.
And so to get back to our topic of communication.
Yeah.
The communication loop is the child behaves. And the child has lots of physical movement, and the child performs certain physical movements. And generally, whatever movements the child is performing are movements that are reinforcing for the child. So if you have a lot of screaming and a lot of running around, well, then you know that somehow that is reinforcing for the child. And the behaviors that are not occurring, like quiet mouth or sitting, those behaviors are not being reinforced.
Absolutely.
Behaviors that are not reinforced disappear from the inventory.
Yes.
So,
it makes so much sense. Absolutely.
So when you look at your child, you see, certainly in the early years, like for us, it was all horrible. Really, I mean, it's just so chaotic and so difficult and so challenging for the families, and such an impact on the parents and the children to have such a disrupted family member, which is very sad. But that child is reacting to the level of reinforcement in his environment. And most kids with autism are in a very low reinforcement environment. So specific reinforcement that is targeted and that is done with intent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right, because it's hard as a parent to kind of, like you said, there was so much going on to pick out those small, minute things that you can reinforce.
Yeah.
But yet having that communication device that can do it in an instant, because our voice, our words take so long, and action, we can remove them from the situation, but by the time we do that, we've not reinforced anything.
Yeah, and often we call them away. And
Right.
just hauling them away, that might be pleasurable for a child with autism.
Exactly.
Like mom is lifting me up. Oh, I like being lifted up. It's kind of
Right.
nice.
So maybe I'll do that again. Right.
So, your child behaves, your child does what he does or she does. And so whatever he or she is doing, that is reinforcing for the child. If the child is not doing things that you like, then this is where you insert the positive reinforcement. And for my son, most of the time he was very disruptive. So I had to wait. This was what I really had to learn to do. I had to wait, and I had to learn and teach myself to look at him and wait for that second, that 1 second when the mouth was quiet, the arm was down, or who knows, there are many other good things that children can do. But they are such tiny little opportunities. They're so fleeting. And this allows you to capture it. And that's what this whole procedure is called. It's called capturing a behavior. And these mini seconds of calm or quiet or whatever that it is that you're looking for, they are rare in a child with autism.
Oh, absolutely.
And you don't want them to elude you. You want to take advantage of that rare split second. And the good thing is, once you reinforce that rare split second, that child will perform it more often over time. The child will, as you continue reinforcing that behavior, like quiet mouth, and the child eventually will perform it for longer periods. So my son screamed constantly, but within short order, I was able to take him on a 7-hour car trip with only, the occasional yelp.
Wow.
So.
Right. So how did you transition from, doing like clickers and in like those instant moments to when his behavior started getting better? How did you still utilize that, or what? I guess I'm trying to figure out, you're not clicking it all the time when all of a sudden his behavior is getting better. How does that transition happen?
Oh, that's a great question. Because what I first talked about is capturing behavior, right? And then your next step is, once you have more of those little behaviors, you shape a new skill. So you shape a new skill. So, for example, my son was always screaming and running around. So he eventually had less noise, but I wanted to be able to go outside with him and walk, because going outside was a real, high blood pressure event, because he would dart this way and that way.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So then I literally had to teach him to walk. I mean, he could run every way, but to walk down the block, or walk down the hall in the grocery aisle in the grocery store, that is too organized an activity. He was incapable of that. So I thought, okay, I've got this. And then my next kind of project was, okay, he's darting constantly. Let's see if he takes 2 steps in the same direction. Because he would take 1 step, turn and bolt, 1 step, turn and bolt. So I thought, okay, the first time that he goes 1, 2, I dropped it, sorry. So
no, that's okay.
Second step. First step, second step. So pretty quickly, I had him taking 2 steps in the same direction. And then I was able to make it 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 steps, and continued along that way. And then he could walk with me, and we could walk around the block. We could walk around the playground, and I was able to teach him to walk next to me. So every time he came within range, so he learned to walk next to me. And so then that really opened us up, because then I could take him for walks. And taking a child with autism on a long walk, like around the block and through the trees, that's an extremely beneficial activity for both the parent and the child.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yeah. It just leads to so much calm and
yeah. And then once he could walk safely and have quiet mouth, guess what? We could go to the grocery store.
Yes.
So we went to the grocery store, and of course, you start off with very short trips, like you go in and you go out. But
Absolutely.
I got a hands-on cart. So he stuck with the cart. He walked. He was quiet. And we were able to go to the grocery store. And even for a very young child, if you have a child who's still small enough, you can put them in the seat, teach them hands-on cart.
Ah, yes.
You flip it around later on. But if they have their hands on their cart, then they're not,
Right, absolutely. Or grabbing things and, yes.
So, in hands-on cart, again, you might see if the child, say, is sitting in his little grocery cart, and here's the handle. That child might just touch it. So,
okay.
So what, you don't say, put your hands on the cart and then hold their hands. But so every time they touch it, and then the other hand, and eventually, just by chance, they will have both hands on, and you tag and reinforce that. So, and then of course, again, it's up to each family which way they want to go. But I found these were very important skills, because this is what you need to be able to do as a family. You need to be able to walk to the car, get in the car, go to the grocery store, and come home. And without meltdowns, taking two cars and screaming. And you want the grocery store to be a good experience for your other children, because
absolutely,
you want to teach them about food. Every family has cultural traditions. They have certain favorite recipes that grandma makes or whatever. And you want to teach them about food and their culture. And you don't want your other children to miss out on that, because
absolutely not. Yes.
They're a very difficult child. So this system really helps me get the behaviors under control and much more manageable. And that's kind of where and then of course we went off later and did academics, but that's kind of another discussion, I think.
So did you use that method in teaching academics?
Oh, you betcha. You betcha. You use it for everything. Well, we were talking about teacher.
Oh, the direct instruction. Yes.
Yeah. Now, direct instruction for best way to teach your child to read. It's very popular in the homeschool community.
Oh, yes. And you can find one of those used how to teach your child and to read 100 easy lessons. Just about anywhere. Yes.
Anywhere on the internet.
Yep.
So this is how, let me get it up. Now, when I show this on my camera, are you seeing it the right way, or is it flipped back?
Yes, we are seeing it the right way.
Okay. Well, for those of you who are teaching reading, what you do in direct instruction is first the teacher or the parent models the sound. Look, this sound is You've done this, right?
Oh, yes. Yep.
And then you say to the child, do it with me. And then together you go, And then, okay, now it's your turn. So you have your clicker stick. See, this is a little
you attached it to a stick. Yes.
Yeah, I attach it to a stick, and now I point. I say, your turn. You tag the correct response.
Yes.
Now my son was nonverbal. He could never have. Some things he could say.
Right.
He got, but other sounds he couldn't. So we signed them. So he would.
Oh, yeah.
Would sign them. I taught him to sign all the sounds. The more he signed them, the more we kind of got partials. And then, we could get partials on the word.
Some sort of communication, and interaction, and transference of knowledge.
And this story is the word cat. Let me get it right in front.
Yep.
Cat. Well, he would say that. I knew he was trying to say cat, but he said that.
Right.
So I thought, okay, you're reading cat. You can't say the k. But anyway, so this is a great tool to use, the pointer that teachers have always used throughout history. But you add the little tagger, and so the learning experience is one of all constant success. Yes. And that's exactly why it's so good for the child, because the child is only hearing success. In our TAGteach world, we don't punish. There's no punishment. There's no timeouts. It's up to the teacher or the instructor to design whatever it is that you are teaching in such a way that the learning goal can be broken down into a single movement.
And I think that is key. So if somebody was going to be using this concept and looking for curriculum, I would say that what Martha just said is the key to finding the curriculum that's going to work, because it has to be broken down enough. So that's where the direct instruction and some of the other things you talked about towards the beginning of the show too, that there are some curriculums that are much more simplistically broken down, unless, you're an experienced educator and you feel like, I have a lot of experience in writing curriculum. I know there are some homeschool parents out there that do have that background and they feel they can tackle it. But most typical parents, I had no teaching experience at all. So I needed that help. I was looking for resources like that. But to be able to use this method, you really do need to have that really broken down a lot for you and your student.
And you can apply this method to anything, to teaching a child to get dressed. There are so many TAGteach videos about teaching shoe tying.
Oh, yes.
For shoe tying, it's excellent for so many things. There's so many ways to go about it. It's excellent for teaching pencil grip, and
oh, yes.
And it always with TAGteach, there's no force or coercion for the child. Like if you're working with a child and you want that child to start being aware of a pencil, you would put it down, and then when the child just touches it, tag.
Yes,
tag.
Yes.
Get used to this thing. You don't have to do anything with it. Just get used to it. It's okay. It's a nice thing. And then what if the child were to pick it up like this? Tag for now. The child picked it up.
Right, because they weren't instructed on how to hold it properly.
You can play with it, and eventually, as all of this becomes more comfortable, you carry on. And so it really is a communication between the child and the parent, because again, you observe the actions. The child's actions tell you what he thinks or what he's being reinforced for, and then it's your decision to decide what you are going to reinforce. And
and I think that would be really helpful if parents were writing a homeschool IEP, that they could have broken down into what they're really focusing on for the goals, and then to break that down into smaller goals, and then you could use this type of methodology and reinforcement much more efficiently and in a way that you're targeting those highest priorities, which, because otherwise you could be tagging everything. And I think that would be so confusing for your student if you were trying to reinforce too much all at the same time. Is that correct?
I find that we always have found in the TAGteach community that it's pretty obvious for parents once they start with this, what they can best work on, because generally you have some emergency that's going on or something.
Yes, exactly.
That's happening all the time, and everything else gets shoved out the window, which is fine. That's fine.
Absolutely.
That's fine. But there are always opportunities throughout the day to encourage good behavior. And I know, like back in the very short time our son was in school, there'd be an IEP goal like sits on chair for 10 minutes. And it's like, we all have to eventually, at some point, our child has to sit on a chair so you can teach. But I would put that chair out there. I'd put a lollipop on the chair. And as soon as he walks over to that chair and grabs that lollipop, and have nice things on the chair, and tag that child for looking at the chair, touching the chair, sitting on the chair, might only bounce on it for a second or two, but so what? And make that, shape that idea that the chair is a fun place, the table is a fun place.
Absolutely. Yes.
I get success. I sit at the chair, I get success. I touch the book on the table, success. And eventually you build it up. And another of our TAGteach rules is don't push,
right
while you're ahead. That's one of our recommendations is You always have to monitor your child. If the child is getting fatigued, then you,
Oh, absolutely.
and they can have it may only be 3 minutes that you can do. So, okay, you got those 3 minutes, and then you give your child something easy to do, like touch this object, child touch it, tag, okay, you're all done. So you always want to end with something that's easy for the child to do, that you've reinforced, and then you just carry on.
Right. Yes.
You can really decrease the disruptive behaviors, increase productive behaviors, and then start to function more efficiently as a family, more normally, and be able to do these routine outings that everybody else takes for granted.
Exactly.
And then you can go from there, but that's a whole other.
Yeah. And I think that leans into a lot of families always come and they pull this child out of school and they're so panicked that they've got to do school. And yet there's these behaviors, these mental health issues, all of these other things that you can't teach if those things are there. And so make those school. Like Martha's talking about, your main priority was behavior, because behavior was in the way of learning anything else. Yeah. And that was the first goal that needed to be learned anyways. Yeah. So exactly. Yes. So parents, I know we got a question from a mom who said, I'm fairly new to homeschooling. I'm in my second year. We're in the process of adopting a 3-year-old beautiful little girl with autism. I really don't have a specific question. I'm just trying to learn a lot and gather information. And so I guess my greatest just piece of advice and encouragement to you is to do what Martha did first and to really develop that relationship and to make sure that behavior, whatever she has, and coming from, if she's being adopted, there's probably some trauma that you're going to be dealing with and other things. Having 10 adopted siblings, I know. And so yeah, there's going to be a whole lot more before the teaching happens. Yeah. And I think this technique that Martha's talking about may be very beneficial to you to try, especially if communication is very difficult. And I find that, for kids who have attachment issues, they kind of shut down communication, but I could see how that really abrupt interaction could really wake them out of whatever trauma that they're processing too. And so that would be helpful as well. Do you have any other things to share with her?
I would really recommend that this mother kind of dive into positive reinforcement and the details of that.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you mentioned the attachment, because these, many children with autism, regardless, they tend to drift off by themselves, which is okay to an extent, but you do want them to be integrated with family and friends.
Absolutely.
To the most productive extent possible. So if you can imagine yourself in the middle of like a 10-foot circle, so there's 10 feet around you and you're in the room with this little girl. And I don't know if she would wander away, but let's just say, for the sake of this example, that this little girl wanders away. Maybe she doesn't want to be close to people. So you've got your imaginary 10-foot circle and she wanders into the circle. You tag.
Oh, yes. That's beautiful.
Tag. She's wandered into the 10 feet circle. Maybe she's at 9 feet. And so you can hand her the little treat that you have. She may not want you to come that close, but you could put it on a little dish. And so there it is.
Right.
So she wanders away from the 10-foot circle. She wanders back in. She's at 8 feet. You tag and you reinforce. You don't have to say anything. And so eventually she will be quite close to you. She'll be pulling you within 3 feet. And then she may come right up in front of you. Tag and a little treat. And if you want her to say, walk over to grandma, same thing. Create your imaginary circle. And every time she is within, say, 7 feet of grandma, then 5 feet of grandma, tag each of those things. In American society, eye contact is a big deal. The straight on eye
Right.
contact. That's only in our culture. In other cultures, it is
Right.
not.
Absolutely.
So this is a great way for teaching whatever eye contact is appropriate in your culture. And, and as teachers or, as we become instructors, we kind of want our kids to look at us, to give us that little glance like, oh, I got it. Or, oh,
Right. Yeah.
And many children with autism find eye contact aversive. So you can, again, or with your child, you can make the imaginary circle around your child. And so say the child's head is often this way. Well, what if he turns it a little closer?
Oh, yes.
So soon you have it. And then more, as it comes more to the front, you can tag that. You can tag where the eyes look at. Many times we want our children to look at things because there's some object. Of course, eventually we all want to get to reading with our kids, but you can set things around the room. And if they look at it, tag, because you want them to learn to focus on objects.
Right.
And those are all the elementary skills, looking at things, looking at people, walking towards people, and that kind of thing. And you don't ever have to say a word. You do have to sit back and just wait for it to happen. And you don't have to really even praise in the beginning. I would avoid that because you don't know what how the child is going to react to your voice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And you can also accustom your child to your voice by saying, let's say this child's name is Sally. You could just say, Sally, Sally, and tag and reinforce your speaking so that she understands when she hears her voice. That's a success. That's a good thing. It's a
good thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So all these underlying behaviors that you can capture. Remember, that's what we want to do. We want to first capture those rare, elusive split seconds and then shape them into bigger and better behaviors by constant reinforcement. And as they get more reinforcement, our kids, they perform more behaviors. You're going to just see them doing more things. So then again, from that new set of behaviors that they're performing, you can select, ooh, that's really good. That's not so great. That one's good. And you can continue to extract and promote the more productive behaviors. And soon you're on a really good trajectory. It takes time. This is not a quick fix. But,
right.
I mean, those of us who are homeschooling special needs kids, we know there's no quick fix. And it takes a lot of time. So
yes. Yeah. So if you haven't figured that out, you haven't been homeschooling long enough.
Yes, with this, no second will go to waste. If there's
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, don't waste that second. Mm-hmm. Grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, parents get stressed out about a lot of different things, and a lot of times especially when people first start homeschooling, I want to get my child caught up. I want to, want to get them doing this and this and this. And I know we've kind of already addressed that that's probably not the mindset to enter into this scenario. But there will be a time when parents are considering how much can we do? And I know we got a question from a viewer that she asked, how will I know if my nonverbal child is able to read? Do you have any advice for that parent who is, contemplating, is this even a goal?
Oh, I think so. I taught my son to read. I mean, I was determined.
You've got to be, yes.
No child of mine was going to be nonverbal or non-literate. So again, I started with this book. And
and that's Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, if you just joined us. Yes.
That's how it started. And there is, this is an example of a whole body of curricula that is referred to as direct instruction. I can give Peggy a link. She's probably familiar with the National Institute for Direct Instruction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there are many curricula for teaching reading and math, There's a direct instruction computer-based program called Phonics Reading, F-U-N-N-I-X Reading.
Yes, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
Phonics Math, F-U-N-N-I-X Math. And those are very good. And once again, all the same rules apply. Start with the easy stuff. Have your child touch the book. Have your child turn a page in the book. You know, real simple stuff. And then this is lesson 1, and you begin with the sound. Now, my son could not say this. So again, I use sign language. He signed all the sounds, and he was able to do that. Another, let's see if I have an example. Ooh, I know. Here we go. Another thing you can do with such a child is you can teach the teddy bear. So you can demo the whole thing with a teddy bear.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Tag when the teddy bear says, I'm a good teddy bear.
Uh-huh.
Take the pressure off the child. The child doesn't have to do it.
Absolutely.
The child can just watch the teddy bear do it. Or if there's somebody in the family, like a sibling who wants to, play student and be part of it. There's so many things you can do. This is your guest learner for the day. Those are all things that make it fun, and you always want to go slow. You want to follow the child's pace. The minute you see them flagging, you stop.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, you can definitely teach your child to read, even if they cannot speak, because my son ended up signing all the sounds, and then I had him sign the words. So it's cat, horse, dog.
So he can spell.
Yes, he can spell.
Mm-hmm.
Spell. So yes, but again, so it's very much possible, and kind of at that point, every family, it depends on the child. You have to go at the child's pace, but you can certainly teach a nonverbal child with severe autism to read. It absolutely can be done. And then the next question I would always get is, but do they comprehend? And I have to say that is a very difficult thing to assess with a child with autism, because the expressive capacity is often very limited. I mean, often they can take in a lot more, what we call the receptive, better than the expressive. And for my son, if you asked him to express, that was just too much of a burden. That's just, okay, he can't operate in that channel where he expresses. That is still very much closed down. And, but he could sign, and, I knew his comprehension was limited early on, but as we kept progressing, I could see that he was kind of understanding things. And then just 3 years ago, when he was 24, I started all over. Just every evening, we did an hour of reading tutoring with direct instruction.
Really?
Yes, just he wanted to do it. I wanted to do it because I wanted to repeat and do it again.
Right.
And the second time around, of course, he's an adult then.
Yeah.
A lot more experience in life, but I really could see also from the way he would point at things and react, or that he was comprehending.
Yes.
So it wasn't perfect, of course. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be where you would really love it to be, but he can read. He can look at street signs. He knows what they say. It's not like, for us, if we went to Korea, we saw all these street signs and things in the Korean language, we would feel totally lost.
Oh, absolutely.
So for him, he's not like living in Korea. He can look at the signs, and he can read them, and he can comprehend them. So
and really that that ability to communicate goes beyond just the ability and being literate, I guess. It goes beyond the ability to read a book. Like you said, it's the signs, it's the, other things that we interpret on a consistent basis in our society. And we become literate by being able to translate that into an understanding of some sort. Yeah. We have one question that was submitted before too that I really want to make sure that we approach because this was really good. Elizabeth asked, how do I communicate these techniques with our other child's caretakers? So whether, you have tutors that you use or therapists or maybe grandma and grandpa help out, or there's all these other people and so it's not just you, but how do you communicate that and make sure it stays consistent?
There is my website. I have a website that has all kinds of explanatory and introductory articles. There's a free video series that explains how it works. And then the TAGteach International community, they have a YouTube channel so you can see demos like shoe tying. Oh, that's such a popular thing. But and not just with autism. I was just looking at the TAGteach YouTube channel, and they had an example of a veterinarian who was teaching vet techs how to handle a python.
Wow.
How do you hold this animal? So there's lots of teaching materials available on the TAGteach website. We have free courses, free video series. Everything on my website is free. There's the 2 free ebooks that I've given Peggy the links for. So there's plenty of explanatory material, but basically it's positive reinforcement. It's positive reinforcement. And
right. So your website is
used. It is so widely used. There's a new TAGteach faculty member, Dr. Martin Levy. He teaches orthopedic surgery interns at a hospital in New York City. He teaches them how to conduct orthopedic surgery, how to handle the drills, the saws, how to tie the knots. So he uses this. He has each of these tasks that we all want our orthopedic surgeons to know how to do.
Exactly.
That, how to position that drill in the bone. He teaches them all with this. He has a month-long curriculum that they go through, and they come out and they are very good at handling the tools of their trade. So, and they come in knowing nothing about this. They pick it up very quickly, and very quickly they see. And I think an answer to that question is one thing that would be important for the parent to show the caretakers is you need to actually use your eyes in a different fashion. You need to look at that child's actions in terms of body movements.
Okay.
Yes. How is that child moving his body? Because so often when we talk about behavior among the general population, there's all this, what one person I know calls cultural fog, with all these kind of cliches like, oh, you have to set high expectations, and, oh, you have to make them walk the line and toe the line. And those are, not bad, but something like having high expectations, how do you translate that to, a child with autism in a caregiving situation? It's
right.
You can't go up to that child and say, yeah, I have high expectations.
Right. Yes. You have to make it very concrete and very measurable.
Yeah. But if you can show the caretakers how to look at the body movements, and then it's pretty obvious which ones are productive. Like this one is not productive. Right. It's a terrible body movement.
So have you, I'm assuming it would be good to share like what you've been reinforcing.
Yes. Exactly.
So then they kind of know, I'm going to look for this. And then it'll just be an extension of what you're already doing. And I know parents do that with like therapy. When their child goes to therapy, they ask the therapist, what are you teaching so I can teach it at home?
Exactly.
And we'll just transfer it back and forth. Yeah. So I wanted to read your website because I know our podcast listeners won't see our screen, but it's Autism Chaos to Calm. And then you do have some behavior basics, 2 free ebooks. And then you have a book also Autism, Chaos to Calm.
Yes.
So I'm going to have all of these links in the description of the YouTube video as well as the podcast. But can you talk a little bit about your book too, so our families know what they will find in that?
Yep. Okay. This is my book. It is Chaos to Calm, Discovering Solutions to the Everyday Problems of Living with Autism, where I talk about how to start, how to develop the child so you can walk, you can go to the playground, you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the swimming pool, all of those things. Basically, everything in this small book is on the website. So it's, the specific chapters in here are broken down into blog articles on the website. So everything that's in the book, you can see on the website.
Sometimes it's nice just to have a physical copy.
Yes. And also, when you go to the website, it's kind of scattershot. This goes from the, beginning to the end.
Right.
When I first started doing TAGteach with my child, it was completely scattershot.
Right.
I was experimenting with this. So I thought, but it was so successful and so powerful a method. Other good things like low cost, a tagger, these little gadgets, probably they're a little more expensive now, but you can buy, like 5 for $10.
Okay.
This is the standard tagger. There's also something called the iClick if you have a child who's a little more sensitive. See, it's a quieter.
Yeah, it's a little quieter. It's probably it looks like the button is a little easier to push too.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. So like if you're outside with your child and you want to teach the child to kick the balls and the child is like 20 feet away but does the desired movement and you're outside, this nice loud thing is good for outside.
Absolutely.
So, and then there are like novelty clickers. These are fun. Like there's a little pink pig.
Oh, that's cute.
Turtle.
Oh.
These can be fun because you can say to your child, do you want the pig or the turtle, Mr. Pig or Mr. Turtle, to teach you today?
Oh, yeah.
As soon as the child points the turtle, you tag with the turtle. So these are ways you can give your child choice.
Right.
Then if you have if you have there are siblings, like you could ask a sibling to tag quiet mouth in the car. You're driving and the sibling could tag and hand over little treats for quiet mouth. And if you've got kind of a crazy sibling, you say, ooh, do you want the eyeball?
The eyeball.
Watch out. Keep an eye out as soon as you see quiet mouth. So
that's
all
great.
these funny things, and it's a great thing. Kids learn TAGteach instantly. So if you have, younger siblings, they can just take over.
Oh, yes.
They can tag good behaviors for a while. And then, of course, you have to praise and reinforce the siblings who are doing that. Let them earn tokens and all of that. So they get they get encouragement and success. And kids are like automatic behavior shapers. They really take to it. So this is a book. It's been translated into Italian.
Oh, wow.
It's also been translated into Arabic by the Dubai Autism Center. And the TAGteach has many courses, the TAGteach website, but my website, Chaos to Calm, has a lot of free information because
Wonderful.
This was such a great thing for me. It was so effective. And I thought, people have to know about this.
Absolutely.
Maybe they choose not to.
Yes.
But at least make an informed decision. Study it. Look at it. Look at the videos. Think about your own situation. If you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Right.
But it really is powerful. It's inexpensive. It's portable. You can use it anywhere, anytime. And very effective, and no force, no punishment, no coercion for the child. And once you learn it, it's fun.
Yeah.
It make a very difficult situation a lot better. It won't cure the child or anything like that, but it will elevate the capacity of the child.
Absolutely. Yes. And make those interruptions. Like you said, they're just so at the beginning when you're trying to kind of enter that chaos. And I love that title of your book, Chaos to Calm, because that really has been where you have brought your son. Can you share just a little bit of where your son's at right now? Because I think that's going to be an encouragement to families.
Yeah. Well, my son is now 27 years old, and I have to tell you, he's a very cheerful young man. He loves to go out. He loves to have a good time. He's always ready to, go to Costco or go to the park or whatever. So
That's awesome.
he is a happy person. He's cheerful. And we were very lucky when he was 14. We got him involved in therapeutic horseback riding. And now he works at a nearby public riding stable. He goes there every day with an aide. And he does all the chores around the barn. He feeds the horses, he stacks the hay, he mucks, and he has a great time. And he's a physically strong young man. And of course, all of our kids with autism have sensory issues. So for him to be in an environment with a lot of walking, a lot of lifting and carrying is very good. And he's very successful there. He's a valued worker, and he loves it. So we have had... we have had good luck. Now, he still has his eruptions. The autism never goes away.
Right.
But for the severity of his condition, and if you look at the general population of people with that severe a condition, he still hits his head. That still happens. But if there's... Peggy, you may have heard of the National Council on Severe Autism. And if you read their stories about these children and these young adults, and they literally bang their heads on the floor and break.
Yes.
And then they erupt into ferocious tantrums, and they destroy all the furniture and punch holes in the wall.
Right.
That's not uncommon. And of course, it's very difficult to get help for them. And many parents are in that nightmare. Mm-hmm. And we have a son who is equally severe, but he's in a better place.
Right.
And that would not have happened without the science of ABA, and particularly the TAGteach application. And then, of course, my husband and I work with him constantly. We're both working with him all the time. Mm-hmm. But you have to have kind of a roadmap or a method.
Right.
And that's how I was able to get all those very difficult, chaotic behaviors down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for just allowing us to glean some wisdom from you, from your years of homeschooling and working with your son, and just what an encouragement that is to families. I know a lot of families do have those elopers and the kids with severe behavior, and later on this year, we're actually going to be talking more about behavior for an entire month, but just having the ability to kind of break into that chaos and create calm. So if check out Martha's website again, it's Autism Chaos to Calm. Like she said, you'll find all of her resources there. And we just appreciate you, Martha, and your willingness to share with us.
Well,
this has been great.
We also have a TAGteach group, particularly for the Chaos to Calm type community. So there's of course, that's all free and everything. And
right. Yep.
We have lots of resources, and it's a very dynamic community, and international. It's all over the world. So,
wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. No matter what the language is.
Yeah. That device will work. Yes.
Enforcement. So.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again.
Very much.
Yes. And thank you for all that you do. And what a blessing it is for your son to have a mom like you who is so persistent. And now you're sharing it with other people. Yes, and so it's a blessing to many.
Well, thank you very much. I love talking about it, and I can go on forever. So, stopping this.
Yes. Well, we are going to continue this conversation with another guest actually on Thursday. I've got 2 shows this week. We didn't have a show last week, so we're making up for that time. But we're going to talk on our next episode about teaching nonverbal students and how to tap into their communication pathways. So you'll want to join us for that conversation as well. And the podcast, it'll just be the next week's podcast. So either way, you can join us with those conversations. So thank you again, Martha. I appreciate you. And thank you all of our audience for joining us. And we'll see you here next time on Empowering Homeschool Conversations. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer.
Our world can feel chaotic and uncertain, but we don't have to live enslaved to fear. Christ has promised me and you his peace, and throughout Scripture has provided powerful tools and practical steps to help us experience greater freedom. I'm Jennifer Slattery, lead host of the Faith Over Fear podcast, inviting you to join me and my team as together we learn how to starve our fears and feed our faith. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com or wherever you access podcast content.